Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Shout out to Average Man Unplugged. Thank you so much for that video you put out. My Blacktreon subscribers will tell you that I talked about this before on my Blacktreon. I've loosely mentioned it on my YouTube, but on Blacktreon and on my Odyssey behind the paywall, I've talked about this. Now, at this point, Odyssey, if you decide to download them for $1, one individual download for $1, I'm going to get about 58 cents out of that. That's not acceptable to me. So I'm about to go and up those prices to $2 because I can edit that and change that. So I'm going to up it to $2 so that I get $1.58 because I can't just charge $1.58 so that I get my dollar. So I got to get $1.58. I can only charge even dollar amounts. That's what I'm going to do. And right now, Odyssey doesn't, they haven't fixed the thing on, they haven't fixed the feature where you can go in and actually purchase the LBRY currency so that you can trade that. So since they haven't fixed it yet, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and up those. Ah, God, dang it, I just hurt my foot. Whew, sorry about that. So, yeah, I said this on Blacktreon for my first class flyers. I don't always upload to Blacktreon, but when I do, I know I sound like the Dos Equis commercial. I don't always upload to Blacktreon, but when I do, it is of substance. It's worth it. You can pay $2 a download, you can pay $5 for the subscription. I put the substance on there. I talked about what sisters, though they cannot do certain things, I talked about what they will do if they can and how you can avoid it. Now, I hate to toot my own horn. I'm not trying to do that. I am trying to avoid poverty, yes, but I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I actually learned about these things from others. What I'm trying to do is make this mutually beneficial for you and for me. That's what I'm trying to do. You always look for mutual benefit, and I'm trying to make this mutually beneficial for both of us. You can learn certain tactics. They're not terribly deep, but they're things that a lot of people are simply going to overlook because we're human. So I help you. Like some of you have really helped me. Look. It's good to know what they will do and how you can avoid it. Now, a lot of these things I said before Austin got into that trouble that put passport bros in the mainstream. But what I've said still works because I was talking as though passport bros were more mainstream than what they were at that time. It's in my travel tip series. Might as well go ahead and listen to the whole series. The videos aren't long. But you all got to understand. You got to realize that this is coming. And that you could have been better prepared for this. I mean, it's going to come a point where we're going to want another passport anyway. That's already happening because even rich white guys are trying to get that. And they want to get it. They want to get that without the exit tax. That's what they're looking for. You know, quite a few Saudi citizens made a choice. Saudi U.S. dual citizens made a choice. Quite a few of them said, "Here's the deal. This is what's going to happen. Either we're going to go into the U.S. and work as cops because the economy here is getting bad, but Arabic-speaking police officers are in high demand in the U.S. So some of them went back to the States to become cops. Others, years ago, said, you know what, shuck this fit, we'll just cancel U.S. citizenship. And that's what made the demand go up. Anyway, that being said, one of the other things I wanted to record about was about the previous decades. It's not true from what some people have said. When I was a small child, we men did not start the gender war. The gender war was much of what it is now. Well, that's, I would say, a lot of what it is now, certainly on the same track as what it is now by that point. If the gender war was started by men, it had to have been done probably in the 1800s, definitely not in the 1900s. Let me explain this to you. Neither my parents' generation nor their parents' generation would have allowed boys to start a damn gender war. They didn't even allow us to fight back in what was already a gender war unknowingly to us. They didn't tolerate it. It was as plain and as simple as, no, you're not allowed to fight back. No, you're not allowed to retaliate. No, you're going to sit there and deal with this because you're a guy. We had fathers that did this. So don't let somebody come along and tell you that we men started the gender war. In the beginning of 1990, Roxanne Shante put out this song, Brothers Ain't Shit. Somewhere in 91 and 92, Snoop and Dre put out the song, Shit Just Ain't Bit. I would have used the spoonerism for both, but you probably would not have known what I was talking about if I did it for both. Shruthers ain't bit, you'd have been like, wait, what? But when I said shit just ain't bit, you got it. You knew that. Roxanne Shante got money, I'm sure, but she didn't get, that song didn't get a lot of negative press. Because what she was pretty much saying is, I'm going to throw a fit if you just even show me attention. And there was another song she made a little bit after that, You Not Knocking This Hottie. All she was doing was talking about, y'all men ain't nothing and you ain't going to get in these pants. She didn't say you ain't going to get in these pants because I'm chaste or because we're not married. It was nothing like that. No, it's just I'm just telling you no to power trip because you ain't nothing. That was it. Snoop and Dre came out and said shit just ain't bit. Now the thing is that we didn't have a culture then nor now in which men could say that men could power trip by telling broads, I'm not giving you these, these draws. You don't get no dingling. But other than that, it was pretty much the same thing. So Snoop and Dre's so-called misogynistic rap, which was considered the peak of misogyny in rap, was nothing other than a reaction. And Cube, when he was rapping with NWA and started talking about I'm only happy when I'm running up in him, he was reacting to what the broads were saying because he had a voice clip in there in that song in which the broad said, girl, I ain't in with these men for nothing but that money. Whatever happened to women's empowerment and being able to get a job? Oh, shuck, that fit. It's that money. That's all you're good for. And when you tell these broads that all they're good for is them draws, because you can do anything else for yourself, oh, you're a pig. But they're empowered women because they got a job and then they still use you for money. You see, that's not something that we men would have done to ourselves. So I want your young brothers to understand you're being lied to by some of these, even some of these older guys, especially by younger guys. Man, back in the 90s, they were saying this stuff. No. Back in the 90s, you had guys that made raps like that. You had guys that made raps and songs that were very simpish and everything in between. And sometimes, actually more than once, you had these same artists making both songs. And then you had women doing that, rapping about how and singing about how much they loved men and then about how men were nothing. Janet Jackson would do that. TLC did that. But TLC, so I creep. He doesn't know what I do because he can't satisfy me. What? Oh, so you have needs. Okay, but you wanted to present yourself to him as somebody that wasn't just about that. Okay, I get it. So instead of telling him that actually you got a little freak in you, you just creep. Okay, all right. One man said to these women, has a man ever made you wait for sex? And they said, no. This was a recent interview. And he said, have you ever made a man wait for it? And these were broads that were tattooed up and you knew they'd screwed some dudes on first date, but they had still made somebody wait. And so he said to them, then who's responsible for hookup culture? Now my answer still would have been both men and women, but the point I'm making is that he was pretty much saying they allowed it. And what I'm getting at is that you've got a scenario in which You young guys are facing a situation in which most of you are being told hell no without even asking by these broads, but none of these broads is virgins. They're not chaste or anything. They're just getting high body counts, but not high percentages of guys. So they're getting high body counts and becoming sluts, and most of you are still left out. One of the things that really upset is, one of the reasons that they're really upset is because you all learn less technical skills than my grandparents' generation, than my parents' generation did. You all learn less about fixing anything than guys my age, and let alone the guys my parents' age. So they really look at you all as useless. But I mean, you probably, if you know, with enough practice, you blow their backs out. But they don't want you practicing on them. Each one of them wants you to be experienced by the time you get with them. Andrew Tate said it. You ask a virgin woman, what does she want? A non-virgin man or the experienced man? I mean, the virgin man or the experienced man? And she'll tell you that to gain her experience, she wants the experienced man. She'll tell you that. That's where the double standards come from. It's what the women drive. Men don't get to demand virgin women. Virgin men don't get to demand virgin women. Virgin women will demand experienced men. But nobody wants to be the practice dummy for the man to become experienced. You're facing these paradoxes and these quandaries that we faced as well. And you, like us, are being told that you started the gender war. Except the difference is you're being told that we, in my age group, started the gender war, down to about age 35. That's the difference. If men started the gender war, I want you to know that we could not have done this in the 1900s. We could not have. Maybe if a man did anything to start it, might have been in the 1800s, but for the most part, no, we did not. If you want to say that men started it, you would have to go back to not even men, you would have to go back to the planter class before independence of the United States, back during the British colonial days. The planter class men who had daughters, maybe they started it. But we black men didn't start it at all, never did. Not then, not now. I was a casualty of it. And so are you now today. You owe nothing. If you were not owed anything, you definitely owe nothing. And not only that, but you're facing an economy in which you pretty much, you don't really have a solution. You're facing that as well. And the women are more materialistic than ever, even though the economy is bad. It was bad when I was your age. It's been bad as long as I've been out of school. I don't know what it's like to financially prosper, to be honest with you, except for like 14 months out of my adult life. I don't know. I know what it's like to be okay, but I don't know what it's like to financially prosper. I haven't had that experience. I was about to. I needed a little while longer, hell, maybe 5 months longer, but I got laid off. And no, I didn't do anything to earn it. And guess what? My wife at the time told me, well, I had just been lucky to get the job that I got for as long as I got it. And dawned on me that as a black man, I was never going to be good enough. And I look back and I wonder if she married me thinking that I was going to be exempted from certain things inherent in white supremacy, like in the job market. I wonder if she thought that. Matter of fact, I think that might have been the case. But no, you young gentlemen, don't accept any blame at all, because it ain't you. You weren't allowed. It ain't us. I mean, you weren't born then. It ain't us. We weren't allowed. We were at least small kids when it started, and I'm sure it was even before that, because everybody older than me remembers certain things. BGS remembers a lot and has researched from before when he was even born. So all the evidence points to it wasn't us. Might not have been men at all, but it damn sure wasn't no black men. It wasn't even the poor white men that started that. And you know, for me to exonerate them means something. No, don't fall for that. A young guy, I think he's young, he sounds like it, in the comments try to tell me that. He seemed to not know what happened in the 80s and 90s with the music. He said to me that running is not the answer. Prophet Abraham, peace be to him, had to run. His own uncle or dad was joining with the rest of the people to kill him because he wouldn't worship idols of stone that they made with their own hands. He had to run. Was that his fault? No. Lot, his nephew, peace be to him too, had to run. Was that his fault? No, he got the order from God. Get out. I'm finna tear this up. And he did. The Lord mashed up Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh, that's not all. Moses, peace to him, and his people had to flee. Was that their fault? No, it wasn't. It was Egypt they were dealing with. And since they were pursued, their pursuers got drowned. In your scripture, Jesus, peace to him, had to flee. In history and in our scripture, Muhammad, peace and prayers be to him, and his companions had to flee twice, once to Abyssinia, the second time to Medina. Then they went back into Mecca and took it. You understand where this is going. There are times when people have to leave where they're from. It could be running from something or running to something, but it does happen. I know, been at it 9 years. And I'm seeing a good bit in these 9 years. If I showed you all where I was living, how I was living in the studio, and what I'm doing to make it comfortable, you'd say, man, why don't you just go on back stateside? Because the states will be even worse. Not only financially, because at the very least I can say I'm paying 510 US dollars for where I'm staying. You won't get that. The dump in which I'm living, you wouldn't get for 500. And not only that, but then you got to hear somebody, this Alabama mom on Pink Book Lessons, shout out to her. You got to hear that Alabama mom talking about she can't pay a $93 rent a month. You're looking like, man, I'd love to have that kind of rent. That's what you're dealing with over there. You're dealing with that because you do not know a whole lot about elsewhere, for which I don't blame you, and because you can't run that easily. But if you could and you knew, you would not stay. Because I'm staying in this dump here so as to not go back there. Because I've already given it a try. I've tried it for years. It never, ever, ever, ever worked out. It was never profitable. It was never worth it to stay in the States. And though my kids are there and I miss them dearly, the fact is I could never do my job as a dad for them in the States. I was facing unemployment for months and I chose to face that here rather than in the States, because in the States it is dog eat dog, it is cutthroat. When a lot of you young brothers look at the dating market, you look at these broads out there now, you realize it's hopeless. You ain't gonna find nobody. It ain't your fault. That's the one thing they don't tell you. It ain't your fault. But when you realize that there is no good selection to make. If they know how to act, they won't look the part. And if they looked the part, even if they knew how to act, they wouldn't do it. That's what you're facing. Meanwhile, if you look the part, you're not allowed to just act any old kind of way. But then if you don't act the way they don't want you to act, they don't respect you. You're facing that. Well, guess what? The job market's really not much better. When you start off and they just can't look at anything you've done right or how you've made improvements in the beginning because you're learning, that's because the job market there is so competitive that employers look and they say, I can't afford to teach anyone anything. They got to hit the ground running. They got to know what they're doing the first day, even if they're fresh out of university. That's how they are. Some of y'all think something's wrong with you and maybe something else is, but some of you think something's wrong with you in the job market because of that, and it's not. It's actually very normal. You start off making errors. You start off not knowing certain things. You learn and they become routine. Muscle memory changes, but you don't start off that way. You're just dealing with employees that don't want to understand that. That's what you're looking at. That's what you have to face, and that's not your fault. I know, because if I was a business owner in the United States, I would be the same. Because I would have to be, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't survive. my business wouldn't survive. There'd be nothing I could do. So I don't look at you and say, oh, you're terrible because you didn't start off the first day knowing X, Y, and Z. Now, I do think that the school system doesn't do you all justice. I do think that. I think it does you all a disservice. Sometimes some of y'all have this anti-academic idea that you got from classmates. That may be the case, but you could unlearn that when you're out of school within a week. You don't get to start off doing anything like an expert. You just got a situation in which a lot of employers are trying to not pay, they're trying to get expert skills for novice wages. And Google actually probably had some good reason to lay off a lot of them employees that they laid off, but they still created the culture for it. They did do that. They absolutely did. And you got people now saying you should have learned this and you should have learned that, and they may be right. But if whatever skill everybody learns no longer is lucrative and won't raise a family anymore, you're also facing that nobody wants to tell you. It is jacked up. That's what you young cats are facing. And you know what y'all don't realize is that you didn't start this. There are things you could have learned differently. There are things that you could have done better. I'm sure that's the case for everybody. But you didn't mess these things up. You all are being looked at and blamed as if you all created the situation in which you found yourselves. And you didn't. It wasn't you. And it's the same thing for my generation. We were blamed for things that were beyond our control. Eventually, parents started looking at us and saying, well, why haven't you gone and bought a house yet? With what money? Lucky if we found a job. A lot of us got out of college, and because a lot of us got out of college at the same time I did, corporations started looking and saying, well, we're just flooded with applicants. We're not going to offer any real money for these jobs. As a matter of fact, you know what? These jobs are not torturing these kids enough. Let's get rid of them. And the only jobs are going to offer janitorial positions or maybe unpaid internships so we can say, we're giving you experience. Anything but the money, because they were trying to save it. That's how they were doing it. That's when I was coming up. And it's one of the reasons why my generation is not blaming your age group a whole lot. A lot of the blame you're hearing is really coming from our parents. I sat up and watched a friend of mine get chewed out by his aunt about our generation's work ethic. And this friend of mine's younger than me. Y'all don't want to work. And I said, well, I mean, obviously, ma'am, come on. Obviously, I want to work. I'm visiting from Saudi Arabia where I'm working. I traveled a long way away to work. Started having to learn another language to work, all that stuff. So, yeah, but most of y'all don't want to work. And I said, no, that's not really the case. We don't want to work any more than you do. I mean, you're retired. You get to stay home, so you stay at home. You don't want to work, but you are willing to. Most of us are willing to, but everybody's saying to us, here's some pennies. Now get out there and work your butt off. No health insurance, nothing. Just take these few pennies and get out there and work. Hard. And don't need any time to learn anything either. That's what I had to sit up and tell her. She was telling her nephew, and her nephew was getting mad because she kept interrupting. And that was one of the reasons I jumped in and said it. I had to go back to my parents' house after that visit and I had to say to my dad, Dad, I really appreciate you being as understanding of my age group and generation as you've been. Because Pinky's mom was sitting up telling Bobby that they're nothing. They don't want to work. They're just a bunch of lazy bums. And that's not the case. It's the economy. That's what we're dealing with. And I have to stop and tell you young cats, man, look, there are things y'all do need to fix. Everybody's got that, but y'all didn't start this. Financially, you all did not do a lot of the stuff to yourselves. And truth be told, most of you listening are black. And while there may be some cultural generation gaps, you all have not come up, you still have not grown up thinking you can get away with the same things white folk can get away with. So a lot of times when you hear these old folks talking about, oh, these young whippersnappers are showing up to job interviews with booty shorts on and sandals and flip-flops and tank tops on in the summertime. They ain't talking about us. They may be talking about some Keishas. But hell, I mean, Keisha knows how to act to get a job and keep it. Because, that's one of the few things they learn, how to please that massa and get that job so she'll never need you. Oh, they learn that. That's Becky showing up when she's 19 for a job interview dressed like that. That ain't you. You ain't doing that. No, it wasn't you. You never started any of this stuff. Don't let anybody lie to you and tell you did. I want to say any of the stuff I'm talking about with regards to marriage and money. That wasn't you. Now, I do think that you all have carried on in the school system. I think a lot of you carried on too much that anti-intellectual culture. To be honest, I think y'all did. Because I taught y'all for a while. But I don't think that you young men did not start the gender war, definitely, because that was well underway before you guys were born. We just didn't know it was a war. And you didn't bash up the economy. I hope this helps. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual. Non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy till extinction of judgment day.